Simon Conway Show. I'm delighted and honored to welcome back to the show Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. How are you, sir?
I'm wonderful. I look forward to being up in Iowa next week and seeing everybody.
Yeah, we look forward to welcoming you back many times over the forthcoming months that are in our way. I ask everybody who's running for president, because it's a huge decision, the same question. Why?
Well, because we need to lead a great American comeback. Our country's not going in the right direction. We all know that. We see it every day. We feel it every day. You look at the border, you look at crime, you look at the economy. It's harder than ever for working people to make ends meet. And, of course, we have a president that shows no leadership whatsoever. But the decline of our country is a choice. It is not inevitable. And my view is we have a better path we can take. I believe we've shown how it can be done in Florida with what we've done over the last 5 years, and we can bring that kind of know-how to the United States of America. This is an important election, though, Simon. There's no substitute for victory. We can't have a culture of losing. We can't make excuses. We've got to get this done. And what I've made the pledge to our primary electorate is, you nominate me in this race, then on January 20th, 2025, at high noon in front of the west side of the Capitol, I will be there taking the oath as 47th president. I will get it done, and I'll make sure that we bring the changes that we need to this country.
All right, there's a long way between here and then, and the garbage has already started. I don't know how much press you look at, Governor, but look, you've been governor since 2019 in Florida. Before that, you were in Congress for Florida's 6th congressional district between 2013 and 2018, right? So basically, you've been in office, in very high-profile office, for a decade. Do you want to know what the lead story in the Orlando Sentinel is right now? Do you want to know? I'll tell you. It's how do we pronounce his name? I'm not kidding. I wish I was kidding, because I was trained as a journalist. So, but that is their lead story above all other stories. That's the first one.
Yeah, well, that's just what they do. So, but at the end of the day, when they come at you, that means you're over the target. If they're not attacking you when you're a Republican, that means you're not making a difference. And so we've come out. We've been dominating the news. Obviously, the left has been going after me for years, but particularly since we won such a big re-election, they go after me because they say, hey, this guy knows what he's doing. He knows how to wield the power of his office, and they understand that I represent a threat to the left-wing agenda. We defeated leftism in Florida. We beat the woke in Florida, and they know that as president, I would be a similar force against all the things that are harming our country. So I understand why they do it. They're going to continue to do it. That just goes with the territory. My wife and I, though, we view it as positive feedback because we think that they only come at you when you're over the target.
There you go. All right. Well, it's certainly going to be interesting. I just thought that was really an indictment of the Sentinel itself, frankly. If they don't know how to pronounce your name after a decade, they're really not doing their job.
Your question is, you don't know how much we look at it. I can just assure you very, very little. I look at pretty much nothing, particularly of some of those outlets that they're just not credible, and I don't even bother with it. I know where true north is. And, a newspaper can say something else, but north is still north, and that's where we got to go. And that's what we do every day. And I think it actually makes you a better leader, because if you get mired in all that stuff, I think you can miss the forest for the trees. We don't do that in Florida, and I think that's the reason why when we say we're going to do something, when we have these issues that conservatives have wanted to deal with for years, we're bringing it in for a landing and getting it done.
Okay, let's talk about some of your earlier life. You joined the military. What attracted you to do that?
Well, part of it was this was after September 11th. Prior to September 11th, I was growing up in the 90s, and we had not a care in the world as a country. As the Cold War was over, we had a prosperous decade, and there just wasn't a lot of emphasis on military service. 9/11 changed that. I think it showed that the country was vulnerable. There were different conflicts, obviously with Afghanistan and then later Iraq, that if you signed up, you knew you'd probably end up going to. But I felt an obligation to wear the uniform and to do my part. I didn't get school paid for, anything like that. I volunteered, I commissioned, and so I was able to serve. I served some stateside in Florida. I did some TDY duty in Guantanamo when they had the terror detainees down there. and then I served with SEAL Team 1. We trained in California, then went to Fallujah, Iraq during the 2007 troop surge. And I'll tell you, I revere the military. I loved wearing the cloth of my country. People say you could have made so much more money in the private sector. You could have gone to Wall Street. You could have gone all this stuff. I'm like, yeah, but the satisfaction you get with wearing the cloth of your country is something that money just can't buy. And the service was important to me. Now I look at our military. I think it's been politicized. I think you have a focus on things like DEI, a focus on things like gender pronouns, and that's diverting from the core mission. And the core mission is really what attracts people to the military. So recruiting is suffering. People are leaving the service. So one of the things I'll do as president on day one, reassert the power of commander-in-chief, get all the nonsense out of the military, say this is going to be mission-focused again, and I think you're going to see recruiting respond very, very positively, and I think you'll see morale increase.
Those last two things are really very important. My family is very military connected. Fallujah is not easy service at all. You also ended up with a Bronze Star. So thank you sincerely. We say this to everybody who served. Thank you sincerely for wearing the cloth of our nation. It means a lot to me and indeed my family, many of whom have worn that same cloth. So thank you for doing that, sir. Let's move on to some other things. You've made your first campaign stop, Des Moines, Iowa. How did you fall on that?
Well, look, I think the Iowa caucus is a tremendous event, and my wife and I have been able to visit a couple times leading up to this, and I'm just impressed with how Iowans view it, how they really take notes and really put in the effort to participate. And so we feel like it's going to be a great place for us. We're going to spend a lot of time in Iowa, and we're making that clear right off the bat. And I think we're going to do 4 stops over the course of a day and a half. But we're going to get to all 99 counties. I think that's the only way to do it. And when my wife and I decide to put our minds to it, we get that done. So this will be the opening salvo, but it's going to be something you're going to see a lot of us over the next many months.
Well, of course, the full 99 counties is known as the full Grassley, so he will be very impressed that you're doing that. He doesn't believe anybody should be president if they don't do the full Grassley, so Senator Grassley will be very impressed that you are doing that. There's one.
Well, you gotta earn it. I mean, I think At the end of the day, nobody is entitled to anything. I am not entitled to anything. I've got to go out and earn this. And that's the way you show people that you care, and that's the way to show people that you understand you have to earn it.
Well, I want to talk about news of the day as well, because we have this governance, financial governance by crisis. One crisis, then to the next crisis. The current one is, of course, the debt ceiling. We all know it's going to be resolved, even if it's 2 days after we theoretically default, which we won't default. Everybody knows right now that they're going to solve it, but we have to play this game before we get there. We haven't had a budget, Governor, since 1996. It's insanity.
Well, and there's a reason why. I mean, just think about it. We're $31+ trillion in debt. Just in the last 5 or 6 years, we've added $10 trillion in debt. It took this country 200+ years to go $10 trillion in debt. So I think it's been a unique form of recklessness that we've seen. I was a U.S. congressman for a time. I voted against all those bloated spending bills like omnibus bills and the other stuff. But part of what you need to do, and I think what I will do as president is, I'll be willing to use the veto power to discipline Congress's spending. So if they send you a big piece of slop that's adding massive amounts to the debt, you have the ability to veto that, send it back, and tell them to be more respectful for the taxpayers. We haven't had a president that's been willing to kind of push that button in quite a while. And obviously the results fiscally have been really, really poor for this country. And what we've seen just in the last, really since COVID, because there was a massive spending binge with COVID. You had the CARES Act, you had the December 2020 $2.2 trillion spending package, you had the Biden America Recovery Act, which was totally gratuitous, and you've had all these spending bills. That's one of the reasons inflation hit almost 10%, and that's why people are having trouble make ends meet. It's a government-induced financial and economic pinch.
Oh, and of course, you've used that veto pen in Florida with theoretically very friendly legislature, so you're not afraid to do it. Let me end with Florida, because I promised a certain time, and I will hit that time. We will be out on time, Governor. You have my word. Let's talk about Florida. You know, hurricane season starts next week, and I remember very well last year we did 20 hours of straight broadcasting last year for Hurricane Ian on the Florida station that I'm on from time to time as well. If crisis comes to Florida and you're running for president, what happens?
Oh, I'm governor. I mean, we do this all the time. We prepare for crisis, prepare for storms. When there's a storm on the horizon, everything you do stops, and you're there. And that's no different than when I was running for re-election last year. We were right in with Hurricane Ian. We were in the height of the re-election campaign. I canceled 3 weeks worth of stuff. We stopped raising money. It all comes to a stop, and you're there doing it. But we prepare year-round. We did a really exceptional job with Hurricane Ian, but at the same time, you know, we want to prepare and do it even better the next time. Now, we're knocking on wood and hoping that we don't get hit with one, because
Sure.
I think that if we could get through this season without one, you know, that would be really, really good for the state. But we are prepared for it, and of course, you know, you'll be involved 100%. Now, we just finished a legislative session a couple weeks ago. I've signed almost all the bills, got the budget I'll be signing very shortly. So the legislature is gone. So the day-to-day legislative stuff is basically stopped until the fall, and then the legislative session next spring. So typically what we do in Florida, we do use the summers to monitor the storms and prepare for the response, and that will not change given that the fact that I'm running.
Governor Ron DeSantis, thank you very much for joining us today. We really do appreciate it. I look forward to many more chats with you as the months go by. You take care, sir.
Okay, God bless. Thank you.
God bless. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis in the fight. 515-284-1040, 284-1040, all across the great state of Iowa. This is the Simon Conway Show.